Today on Screen It or Stream It.
Just a plain, old-fashioned review.
And I thought you were going to transform the opening into some kind of bad pun.
Not this time. Definitely nothing more than meets the eye going on here. Bumblebee is rated PG-13 for sequences of sci-fi action violence.
It begins on planet Cybertron, where the heroic Autobots are losing a civil war against the evil Decepticons.
As a last-ditch effort to save their cause, a lone soldier, Bumblebee, is sent to establish a secret base on an out-of-the-way planet called Earth.
He makes it there, but is wounded and assumes the form of a Volkswagen Beetle.
The main story picks up in the year 1987 when teenager Charlie finds Bumblebee in a junkyard and gets him running.
Of course, the Decepticons are looking for any trace of the Autobots to wipe out any possibility of future resistance.
So, naturally, Charlie accidentally activates Bumblebee's transmitter, which acts like a homing beacon for the Decepticons to follow.
Now, the sixth film since the Michael Bay Transformer era began. What do we think about this one?
Well, we went against our feelings on all the previous installments and we decided that Bumblebee, it's alright.
Okay, so Bumblebee doesn't have a whole lot of great pedigree following into it. Because we come from the Michael Bay era, and I guess technically this is still a Michael Bay film-ish. He produced it or
something. He got a producer credit.
But it was very, very, very obvious to me that he did not have as big a hand in this as maybe some of the other ones. This is easily and by far my favorite Transformers movie.
I had stopped after the second one.
I watched 3 or 4. I didn't watch the last one. I fell asleep on the one before that. And I was like, I didn't even watch all that one. I can't do it. But when I saw the previews for this one and I saw the Transformers look like actual stinking Transformers, I'm like, you got me. I got to go. And that was one of the things that really, really loved about this was the fact that the Transformers looked like Transformers. How hard is it just make them look like they're supposed to?
No, and I was very mildly introduced. Like I knew what they were, but I was a little too young for them when they were, the big thing in the 80s. But I recognized guys in this movie that I had not seen in, how's it long has it been? 25 years?
So, really for me, the story is, it's nothing special. It's been done a million times before. But the fact that the Transformers looked like they were supposed to. I thought Haley Steinfeld, who plays Charlie, the main little girl, I thought she was great. And I genuinely cared for her. And I loved Memo. And I can't remember his name. He had a big long name. But the guy that played Memo, who's like the nerdy next door neighbor that has the hots for Charlie. And he's just really kind of too shy to express it fully. And I'm like, I relate to you as a person.
Yeah.
And it was great watching him kind of fumble and try to just talk to Charlie, and she doesn't know he exists. And so I thought that was great. There was and it's set in the 80s, which is my that's my time. And I thought some the characterizations and stuff of people from the 80s was great. And I'm like, I remember that person. I remember that person. I remember that person. And so just you take all that together, the great characters, and you giving me some Transformers that look like they're supposed to look like and behave the way they're supposed to behave, and you wrap all that up, and it comes out being a pretty good movie. It's not great because the story is not there, but I think if the story had been there, this would have been probably my favorite movie of the year, and I would have been over the moon with this. But as it was, I was really happy with this. So Bumblebee, they changed him up a little bit from the Gen 1 Transformers.
Yeah.
But I love the things they did because, again, they made him mute like they did in the Michael Bay movies. But they gave him antenna, which was hilarious because it allowed him to emote so much better, character-wise, just from the movements like a dog's ears, right? You kind of are a tail wagging, and he had and so just little things like that come together and it was a cute movie. I'm not gonna lie, it come together to add to the cuteness overall of the movie, and I just enjoyed the ride.
He hides out as a Volkswagen Beetle. He better be cute.
Well, and even though, like I said, the main story wasn't there, there's so many little things through this movie that got me, that made me laugh or made me happy. So, the fact that at the end he turns into the Camaro again, and she's like, "You could have been a Camaro this entire time, and you were a Volkswagen." And I thought that was funny. Or I actually like John Cena. I've liked him in several things, which is weird.
I didn't see him. Yeah, I went there.
But no, I enjoyed his interaction. Although there was so the only problem I really had with him was he did the bad guy trope, like bullheadedness thing.
Yeah.
Which he wasn't really a bad guy. He was a good guy, but the Autobots are also the good guys, but he thinks they're the bad guys. And if he'd have taken half a second to converse, analyze, or whatever, he would have realized they were the good guys.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. He just bullheadedly runs. These are the bad guys. Destroy them at all costs.
Think about what you've seen. Put it together.
Which creates most of the conflict in the entire movie comes from him just not. They do that all the time. And like I said, there's a lot of stuff in here that's like you've seen the story before.
Right.
But it was just fun.
There was one little bit of a twist that whenever you look at the humans, none of them really come off as much as villainous as in other movies, where you have someone who is obviously just the tool that the Decepticons are using the whole way through.
Yeah.
You have people that make little mistakes, but overall, pretty much every human in the movie, except for the trailer park dude, is redeemable.
There's always one.
Trailer park dude was awesome.
Well, and the evil high school chicks too. The horrible,
they were just mean.
Just mean.
One of the things that got me, for good and for bad, right? There were a lot of little things in this movie that I really liked, and there was a lot of little things that just kind of annoyed me. So one of the things is there's all kinds of little nods, and every time there's little nods to stuff, I always love that. Then I'm worried, what did I miss? Like there was more. There's a scene at early on in the movie, the Memo is coming out of his house, and he has a GoBots magazine, and he looks at it and he's like, and just chunks it, and just keeps walking, and I laughed so hard. I thought that was great. And there's a scene in the movie where The Touch plays, which is the main song from the 80s Transformers cartoon movie, and just blaring in the background. And just little things like that just put a smile on my face and made me happy. They were pandering to me, and I like when people pander to me. But yeah, I enjoyed all that. There was a lot of little, there were things that didn't make sense, but there were little microscopic things through the entire thing that don't make sense. There's a scene where the guy's working on the carburetor, and she's like, hand me a half inch. She goes, oh, what you mean a 7/16 or something like that? Hands him a 7/16, and he goes to the valve cover and starts adjusting. And I'm like, but that's not a carburetor. Like, how hard would it have been to find one guy that's like, yeah, that's the valve cover. He should be in the middle of, I just why did that have to be wrong? And then, so all her 80s. So this movie's supposed to take place in, I think, 87.
Well, doesn't it start in 87 whenever he shows up?
I was confused
and then
about
it's a
that.
5-year gap. So
So was it actually?
It's actually 92, I think, is when most of the movie takes place.
Well, everything was very 80s. The music was very 80s. The styles were very 80s.
Yeah. None of it felt 90s to me.
It didn't. Nothing felt 90s to me. Did it ever say when the...
They said 1987 specifically.
They saw that when
he landed.
Yeah.
Which did confuse me too, because did it say how long he was sitting in the junkyard? Did it say 5 years later?
I think that the old guy says something like, I've been holding on to that car for 5 years.
Oh, okay. But, that's probably another one of those is just wrong things.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of little stuff in there like that that are just wrong. Her clothes, which are all popular bands from the 80s, are all worn and torn and dirty, and they would look like something somebody would wear right now.
Right. Yeah.
That they had since the 80s. And I'm like, if she had that shirt, it would have been brand new off the rack 2 days ago. And so but there's just little things like that through the movie that kind of you could have fixed that. But
the paintball guns.
Oh,
at the very beginning, did they have
that was 87.
That kind of paintball guns in 87?
Yeah, they had awesome. I don't think
so.
I don't know if they had paintball guns in 80. But no, there's a lot. So there's all this stuff that really just kind of knocks it down. It's really not a great movie if you just take all these little things, the lack of story, the little anachronisms,
and some of the obligatory action movie cliches, oh, they're trapped. There's no way they're going to get out of this. I'm like, no, they're definitely going to get out of this, because it looks like there's no way. Oh, look, they got out of it. Okay.
And I think, so my anger at Michael Bay and what he does to my childhood is just compounded by this movie. To look at all the things they do wrong and the lack of story and kind of how half-hearted a lot of stuff was, and to realize how much I enjoyed this movie, how easy it was to make me happy with a Transformers movie.
Yeah.
And he couldn't do that. And it's like, why? Why did you have to do this garbage?
He just had a different vision that doesn't pander to you.
or anybody,
Well,
or 4.5 billion people.
There were a lot of people who
who
got mad, so I don't know.
Everybody hated it. They just kept going back to the theater and watching it. So they kept making. They haven't figured out how that works yet. But maybe he's a genius.
I liked the first one mostly.
I have a lot to say about this, but it's like we're not talking about those Transformers movies, so I'm just going to let you be quiet.
You're a fan, I take it?
Well, I did enjoy them for the action sequences and just to see the parts moving, but what Michael Bay really brought to the table and what he's good at is he does this sort of surreal reality when he does action sequences. And so everything about those robots, from the light placements, the reflections off of the panels, it's all how exactly it would be in real life if this completely nonsense reality ever did happen. So he has so much attention to detail for movement and lighting and action.
If you take everything you just said and then turn it to the opposite, that's the way I think.
Yeah, so if we can take a little bit of that focus and put it on the story, then we're good.
Yeah.
Well, so no, that's one of the things I hated. I watched an interview with Michael Bay, and I was like, all right, he made all of the robots look the same. They were these giant metallic, like swirling alien tentacle things. And I was like, why did he do that? Why didn't he just make them look like they're supposed to look? And then in the interview, he said, well, I wanted to make something that could exist in real life. And I went, you can buy the toys. Like, you can set it on a desk. How can it not? And honestly, I hate the whole shaky cam. Like, everything in the Michael Bay, when the action sequences happen, everything is this twisting, turning mass, and the camera's shaking. And I'm like, I don't know what I just saw. And in fairness, Bumblebee did that at the start, and I was kind of upset because when it started, when he had the fight with Starscream, and it was twisty turny, and I went, oh, here we go again. And as the movie progressed, though, it gets slowed down, and you got to see stuff in more detail, and you could see the gears, and you could see stuff working, and I really enjoyed like that part of it too. They don't have scale. Michael Bay's version doesn't have scale. Bumblebee's versions don't have scale. Even like when there's a scene, I remember Bumblebee was walking and then Charlie's walking next to him, and you can see them together, and he still doesn't look big. Like, there's just no sense of scale.
I think it's more he doesn't feel big.
He should be, 10, 12, 15 feet tall, probably.
And he seems like he's about 7.5.
Yeah, 8 feet tall. And one of the things, Pacific Rim. I love Pacific Rim. And the thing that got me when I saw the first trailer for Pacific Rim was the scale. They had this enormous scale. And when they moved, like, their movements were these giant lumbering movements of this giant machine and beast. And in the Transformers movies, everything, they move so quick that I just don't have that sense of giant lumbering scale.
That's kind of an ode to the cartoons, though. Like, these were larger than life robots that were moving quick, almost like ninjas at certain times. And that's why I agree with you that it doesn't really make sense in a lot of the live action sequences, but in the fully animated sections of the movie, I loved it. Whenever they were on planet Cybertron and they were having the fight between the Decepticons and the Autobots, and that whole sequence, it was just perfect. But
I love that.
That's only 10 minutes out of the whole movie,
if even.
Well, again, and we talked about this before. If you take something that's animated, you can get away with a lot more, and it looked perfectly fine than you can when you put it on Earth and there's a person standing next to it and it just doesn't compute. And I guess somewhere there's got to be some artistry in there somewhere, even if that's how they would really move. Like, it doesn't translate well, on a screen.
We know what physics look like on Earth.
Right, and it's
that.
intuitive because you have grown up with this, and you just know what instinctively things should look like.
I tolerate the first Michael Bay Transformers movie. I enjoyed this. I will watch this one again. I will recommend people watch this. There's one thing about it really that bugged me, and and it's the cuteness. So, like, this felt like this was aimed at children.
Yeah.
like the Michael Bay ones don't. They seem like that was aimed at everybody, right? This definitely seems like this was tailor-made for a 12-year-old girl to sit down and watch, or
like the little brother was intended to be the comic relief for
Right.
and it just felt,
Girl power.
even though it felt more Transformers to me than ever, it also felt like it wasn't made for me. It was made for a younger generation and younger children. That's probably a good way to go. I mean, but I really enjoyed it. I hope that whoever did it and made it makes another one, and I want to see more of it. I want to see more of the characters, and I really enjoyed it.
Well, with any luck, the GoBots movie will learn these
Go bots.
Made in Taiwan. All right. Anything else?
No, I got nothing else on Bumblebee.
I guess if you're not going to watch Bumblebee and you want to watch something else, I would suggest the original Transformers animated movie. I think that there's a lot that happened in this movie, that a lot of the characters, that if you see that movie, you'll appreciate them a little bit more, making their guest appearances. I want to say that I saw RC in there for a little bit.
I was just like,
yeah.
Yeah, I nerded out when I saw RC too. But that's okay.
Well, I am going with a cartoon. I forgot when it was made now. I looked it up and everything. I was ready, but I forgot. I'm going with the Iron Giant. It's about a robot that literally falls from the sky and befriends a kid, and the kid has to keep it hidden from everybody. It's just like the general wide arcs are fairly similar there. Smack my mic. And it of course they end up in a junkyard too. Even so, there's a lot of little things. Of course, I don't think it was might have been cute because the kid was 9, so it was more aimed at kids. The Iron Giant was, and he wasn't exactly. He was kind of sentient, but he was more like an actual weapon than a soldier. But yeah, Iron Giant, good movie. It's got some feels.
There was a point I wanted to make in the review.
Yeah, go for it.
No, that I didn't make on purpose because it goes with my recommendation. So here's my problem with the story of Bumblebee.
Yeah.
My recommendation is E.T.
Okay.
because Bumblebee is E.T.
Yeah.
Like it's the same story. Little girl comes across alien species, hides it in the house from mom with missing parent.
Yeah.
Gets loose, destroys the house. Like they followed like the beats of E.T. It's like someone took the script to E.T. and went, how can we turn this, throw in some robot fights and we're good. And so the plot, so many similar characteristics. Now the ages are different and it's an alien and not robots, but
That's an alien robot.
But again, E.T. with a much better, when it came out, I thought a much more original story than what Bumblebee was. But kind of the same feel, again, kind of aimed at younger kids.
Yeah.
And
Well, it could have been worse. They could have ripped off Mac and Me and made that Bumblebee doing a sing-along in a McDonald's. But for my recommendation, you'd mentioned Pacific Rim. I'm going to throw out Robot Jocks, and I will throw this out every chance that I get. Anything with big robots fighting, I'm down for, so Robot Jocks.